hope you're all keeping well. Bit of an odd one for my channel today, as I wouldn't really say that I'm a simmer, except if you count ARMA as a milsim and Star Citizen as a space sim. But with that said, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 has been hyped up so much in the past few weeks that I simply had to give it a go, and I've got to say, I've been very impressed, but also confused. More on that later. As a little background, MFS 2020 is a flight simulator like no other. Its first edition came out in 1982 and the latest one is without doubt spectacular. Now, with the use of what they're calling the Blackshark AI platform, Asobo Studios alongside Microsoft have utilised the BENQ maps to reproduce every inch of the planet on a 3D scale. Now, Microsoft say that there are over 37,000 airports, 1.5 billion buildings, 2 trillion trees, mountains, roads, rivers and more. And yes, you can Alan snack bar into your house if it so tickles your fancy. You have obvious stuff like training missions to get to grips with flying, but the creme de la creme is without doubt the world map, which allows you to fly to and from any location you like, change the time of day, weather, and even play with others online. The standard version of the game comes with 20 planes and 30 handcrafted airports. Now, you can get it for 60 quid, but if you're not sure by the end of this video, I would definitely recommend you getting the Game Pass edition, which is £3.99 monthly. Cancelable at any time. Don't like the game after a month, just cancel the subscription and you've only lost 4 quid. If you're watching this video and you're on the fence about the game, you're probably one of two players. Those who are die-hard sim enthusiasts. Maybe you've got one of those crazy cockpit setups. You want realism through and through. Those who are curious explorers. I'd say the advertising for this game appealed mostly to you guys. The fact you can fly literally anywhere in the world. The flying is cool, but it's a side gig to what you actually want to do. Explore our planet Earth from above. I sort of identify within both of these groups. I am looking to get a more serious flight setup one day, and I have part of the kit needed for a flight sim, like my Track IR. Plus, in case you haven't cottoned on, I love flying in video games. Now therefore, I bought it for the exploration, but I will stay for the learning experience. But for now, let's cut right to the chase and get to what you're here for. The pros and cons. The pros. Let's get the most obvious one out of the way. When I looked at promotional videos and screenshots, I was a little skeptical of how much they could really pull off when they are literally simulating the entire planet. But my god, does it hold up. It truly is a next-gen title, with many machines struggling to run it. Don't worry, I will get into FPS later, but you can see it in these clips anyway. If you imagine using Google Earth or something like that, it looks good, but it doesn't have that lifelike feel to it. Everything is just a bit static. But on here, they've combined that real world information, but instead from BENQ maps, and added the trees, airport markings, buildings, sun and weather effects. The result is spectacular. You can visit iconic landmarks around the world, or go to far-flung remote areas no one has ever heard of, and it will be there, guaranteed. Yes, sometimes the AI does get it wrong, and the terrain looks glitched to all hell, but for the most part, and I literally mean over 90% of the time, things will look and feel as close to realism as can be. Now, they have killed it with the lighting engine. The night lights on cities are really well done. However, sometimes they do end up being a little bit overused on quieter country lanes, which would never have lighting around them. The sun shafts, lens flare, weather effects each have their own nuances. If you set low clouds, you can see the areas on the land where the cloud casts a shadow. If you set snow, your cockpit will get loads of little frost particles around the edges. You can literally fly in and out of a storm cloud. The volumetric clouds are extremely well executed here, and with it being a flight sim, gamers should expect nothing less. Microsoft has delivered a title which is truly jaw-dropping in its beauty and long-lasting for many years to come. If you came for the eye candy you saw in the trailers, you will not be let down. Being an avid ARMA 3 player, I also had to visit Stratis and Altus's real-life locations in Greece. Credits to Operator Drewski for the awesome idea to do so, and also a big congrats to him for hitting 1 mil subscribers. And go and check him out if you haven't already done so. It's crazy to see how close to reality the ARMA devs modelled both maps on these real life locations. Of course, this goes without saying for the rest of the video, and will be covered in my con section. If you get too close to an area, too low or too curious, things will not be pretty. Save takeoff and landing, the average sim pilot should in any case be thousands of feet in the air, which is where the game looks fantastic. Just don't get your hopes up too high and expect to go off landing on your street with each individual house, car, shop and tree to be 100% photorealistic. The game has to make concessions in order to save frames, and of course it would take decades and petabytes of data to achieve detail at every single corner of the world. With that said, the game is stunning for the most part. I just stress again, don't get too close or you will break the illusion. This is for high flying and high flying only. Another pro is the game's interface itself, where you have fantastic accessibility options. Take me for an example. I've been using my Xbox controller to do all of the flying and my Track IR to look around the cockpit. No joystick required, although it is highly recommended. Plus, you can turn the difficulty options down, so it's easy to fly for an amateur like me. You can even have an AI pilot take control of things. Or you can dial things up to the simulation level where the aircraft requires much more player input, and all of those buttons and levers need turning, prodding and yanking. The aircraft as a result will suffer damage from overstress to the airframe if you bank or change pitch too aggressively, and it will eventually drop like a stone if you forget to de-ice before traversing to cold areas. For the die-hard simmers, you won't be let down. Each plane has its own individual behaviour and nuances to learn, and most things from what I've heard are where they should be in the cockpit. This is save for a few gripes from 1 or 2 members of the sim community who say that some of the planes are missing the odd detail. I do, however, have no doubt that this will be updated as the game ages. Speaking of age, one thing that does make games age a hell of a lot quicker than others is a lack of customizability or modding. Luckily, Microsoft has made the right call here, and they have left it open to independent devs to put their skills to use in whichever way they see fit. We have new planes, new and updated locations, and even Godzilla, which is brilliant to see. A vibrant modding community usually means a happy and long-lasting player base. Only a few weeks into the game's release and we already have so much to play with and more. And with paid mods coming to the marketplace soon, there's a good incentive for modders to put out high quality stuff. Therefore, with the visuals, realism, accessibility and customizability of the game, I see MFS 2020 as being a purchase that will last you a long time. You know what will also last a long time? My eyes. Now that I'm using BENQ's light bar to keep my desk illuminated for those super long night gaming and editing sessions. Plus, being in law, we're notorious for working late into the night. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Why the hell would I need a lamp over my monitor, which is just going to light up all the Dorito crumbs and Mountain Dew spillages on my keyboard? Well, it's simple. Your eyes need to balance the light from your monitor and ambient light in the background. Now, we already look at screens enough during the day. The result of all of this is extra eye strain. If you're on your desktop during the day, no problem. But in the evenings and at night, even with a lamp behind my monitor, I've been finding my eyes are much more fatigued. With that said, the screen bar is also helpful during the day. You can set it to adjust to the ambient light levels currently in the room, or you can tone it up so it's bright white, which is great for concentration levels. The setting I've been finding useful is where I need to wind down for the night. I use flux to reduce my monitor's blue light, but it's countered out by my bright white desk lamp. So I use the screen bar to change the light levels to a nice warm glow, kind of like a street lamp, so you can unwind and get a good night's sleep if you're working or playing late. All in all, I would highly recommend giving it a try and saving your eyesight in the long term. Big thank you to BENQ for sending this over for me to check out. Now let's get back to the review. The cons. I'll put this at the top of my list as it does seem to be an issue for lots of players, although I personally haven't been affected, but it's bugs and FPS issues or crashes. I've heard of some who have either struggled to download the game or had absolutely massive frame dips. Whilst I have had a fair share of performance issues, the game runs at between 30 to 50 FPS for me on high and ultra, with the worst case scenarios being 15 to 20 FPS. Being an ARMA player, this is relatively minor. I'm running an i7 6700K, GTX 1070, 32GB of DDR4 RAM, and the game is installed on an M.2 SSD, which is very important due to the huge amount of data being streamed. Some have complained of excessively long loading screens, which aren't an issue for me, but they will be if you install on a slow hard drive. Also, if you don't have a good internet connection, I am sorry, but this game will not be pleasant for you. Since most of the data is being streamed from BENQ maps, if you have a data cap or live in a rural area with a crap connection, it will not look anywhere near as good as it can look. Keep this in mind, as it is a relatively big con for some. One other thing I noticed is the game does run better once it's cached the data once or twice. So when I flew over New York for the first time, it was absolutely disgusting. I thought I was back on my old PC playing ARMA 2 slideshow presentations again. But once I had flown around a few times, the game sort of warmed up and ran fine. Look at my FPS here whilst flying over Manhattan, which is arguably the most performance intense area of the game. Now, returning to the visuals, this is a weird point and it seems to have split the MFS community in half. Some say that it is clearly meant to be flown from high, not close to the ground, and so the terrain visuals are fine as they are, but then others demand better quality, drawing on comparisons to Google Maps. I see where both sides are coming from. However, I lean more towards the second group of players. If Microsoft are marketing the game as giving players the ability to fly anywhere in the world, they should be able to do so with relatively few quirks. The terrain in a few places was disappointing, even in the more well-known areas like London and New York, which had dockyards painted onto the sea and static shorelines, which can be remedied by increasing the wind level in the weather settings so the waves flow around the land more. It's confusing to me as Microsoft clearly has this huge group of players who bought into the game purely for the exploration. On top of that, we have planes like the Icon A5, which is made for low-level flight and landing on the shore. When I do so, the game just doesn't hold up. It looks like something from 2005. In addition, Microsoft have added helicopters to the roadmap. helicopters being used for much lower flights than planes. I really question how that's going to pan out with the terrain looking as it currently does. Where do we draw the line between being too low and being somewhere where it is a fundamental part of the gameplay? Furthermore, as it stands, which can of course change with modding and game updates, the terrain itself is quite generic. Trees of almost the same variety are planted across the entire planet, which gets old pretty quick. So I do think the beauty is a novelty. And this is a similar issue I spoke about in my Star Citizen review. Eye candy can only take a game so far before you've seen all you can see. At that point, you need to ask yourself, do I enjoy flying? Do I want to learn how to fly a plane? Because once you've visited all of the interesting locations, all you'll be left with is the main gameplay loop, flight. If you don't enjoy that, then I don't foresee this being a worthy purchase for you. But take my opinion about the visuals with a grain of salt. Maybe we've become too greedy and nitpicky. It's typical human nature to want more than we already have and to take for granted what is there. And what is there is a spectacular attempt at recreating the entire planet. No single game I know of has come close to it. That doesn't mean I can't criticise the game's visuals, otherwise this would just be a one-sided piece of journalism. I need to be honest, but keep it in mind, the issues are there, so weigh them up when you're deciding whether to buy or not. And last but not least, autopilot is derpy as fuck, just don't even bother. So to conclude, if you're a die-hard simmer, you will love this through and through. It will keep you happy for hours on end. Whilst it may not be as refined as the older X-Plane, this game will age well. There's plenty of exciting stuff in the official roadmap and modding pipeline for you wannabe or real-life pilots out there. Many on Reddit have stated that this is a 10-year project, and as such, the game is merely laying the foundations. What happens next is up to the devs and, by and large, the community's creativity. If you're an avid explorer and you were wowed by the eye candy, and this is a big and, you love flying, then get the Game Pass edition and give it a whirl. Enjoy the honeymoon period of the game, where you are travelling far and wide across the planet, and then determine whether it's worth taking a longer term investment in. I hope this helps you come to your decision. Drop me a like, comment and sub if you enjoyed, and of course, thank you very much for watching. All the best guys, Tom it out.